Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Leandra, the TBR0, and my goal is to slowly but surely lessen my physical TBR, one book at a time. Because January is in full swing, I'm sure there are a lot of avid readers out there trying to solidify their own reading goals for 2023, so I thought I would try to help and provide 5 tips for setting up very achievable and satisfying reading plans. As I provide these tips, I will also be sharing my own goals for the year, and if we have the same, please let me know in the comments. If we don't, let me know what your own goals are. That'd be lovely. All right, let's just get into it. Like and subscribe. Tip number 1 is probably the most obvious and the most natural for us to do. I'm sure many of us readers already do this, but make sure you are actually taking a significant amount of time to reflect on past goals you've made, past habits that you've developed over the last 12 months or longer, and how they've impacted your life overall. So which goals were you successful in completing? Not only that, which ones were you successful and you enjoyed them? Because there are sometimes goals that you are so determined to complete and you do it, but the journey to get there was stressful, you hated it, you had to sacrifice other joys in order to make sure you completed that goal, and that's not what we want when we enter 2023. Also consider what didn't work. So what goals did you make that you simply never actually even tried because for some reason it didn't fit into your life, or you realized you actually weren't interested in exploring this one aspect of reading? And which ones didn't work simply because something else was impacting it in a negative way? Maybe you were picking up the wrong books, so then you can kind of figure out a correct strategy. And overall, let's just renew the goals that worked. If you really enjoyed a goal and it worked perfectly, what's the point in reinventing the wheel? Just renew that goal, say you want to do it again. For instance, I'll give 2 examples. For one, my overall reading goal for 2023 is going to be to read 50 books. That has been a goal that I've renewed for at least 5 to 6 years. Sometimes I've successfully made it, sometimes I haven't. In 2022, I ended up reading 96 books, so I almost doubled it. With that said, I will be keeping my goal at 50 because I don't want the goal to suddenly become a stressful challenge that I'm only starting to quantify. I'm gamifying it. Because it works, I'm going to keep it at 50 and just let myself enjoy the books that I'm reading. Meanwhile, one goal that I have actually changed because it became far too challenging for me was that as the TBR0, I decided that any book I did purchase, whether it be just a brand new book or one that I pre-ordered, my original goal was to make sure I read that book within 30 days of receiving it. And it just didn't make sense for me, especially because usually when the book arrived, I had already set up my monthly TBR. And so to add an additional book to that became really stressful. So this year for 2023, hopefully I won't be doing too many pre-orders or purchases, but if I do, that's okay. It happens, and I'm not going to restrict myself on that. But I will say that instead of giving myself 30 days, I'm going to extend it to give myself 2 months. That way, if it doesn't fit into my current TBR for that month, I at least have the next month to do it, and I don't feel like I'm constantly playing catch up. So yeah, I think that hopefully we can all promise ourselves that we're going to take at least 5 minutes to really think about what's worked and what hasn't, and what we want to renew for 2023. Tip number 2 is to keep in mind that there is a difference between goals, challenges, and experiences. I personally enjoy having a mixture of the 3 within my reading plans. Goals, in my opinion, are meant to be extremely satisfying, very much achievable, and they can be a mix of qualitative and quantitative, but overall, you achieving them isn't something that should be extremely difficult. It's just something that you want to keep in mind, keep ahead, and just really enjoy the process. Challenges, however, I do think that if you set challenges for yourself, they can be so fun. I do have a few challenges that I want to participate in when it comes to, the next 12 months, but I'm entering them with the awareness that they are difficult, that they aren't guaranteed, in the sense that even if I make the effort to do it, if I don't achieve them, that's okay. And they do usually have some type of quantitative goal in mind. For instance, one challenge that's genuinely going to be a challenge, and if I don't make it, that's totally fine, is to read 15 new to me Golden Age detective fiction authors. That's quite a feat, that's a lot. However, it's not necessarily a challenge in the sense that it's Golden Age detective fiction. I read that quite often. Even the new to me part isn't very much of a challenge because I realized throughout 2022 that most books I read tend to be new authors for me, so that's just natural. The challenge is the number. 15 is quite a lot, and we'll see if I get it. If I don't, that's fine, but I'm just going to enjoy naturally seeing if I can reach that number, and yeah, we're going to see how it goes. And then finally, there's experience. If you are realizing that there's something you missed out on in 2022, but you want to investigate more, you want to try it out, maybe you want to experience something that someone else did that you would probably enjoy, then that is something that's an experience you want to add to your goals list. For instance, in 2022, I simply said I wanted to read more of the genres that I don't tend to read very often. That included horror, classics, romance, and YA, because I don't typically read those naturally. So those were experiences that I wanted to read, and I kept it quite qualitative. For instance, in 2021, I only read one horror book. So just the idea of reading more, just reading an additional book, that is very much doable, and it's worth it to try it. And I also counted it if I was going to read a book, didn't like it, DNF'd it. I still achieved that experience because I did pick up a horror book. But fortunately, I didn't end up DNFing any horror books that I read because that ended up being a very successful genre for me. So just keep that in mind, and you can also just know that the idea of more is not necessarily more than. If I wanted to read more horror books in general, well, just adding one more to my TBR eventually in 2023 means it's successful. But if I wanted to say read more than I read in 2022, well, I read 6 books that fit that genre in 2022. That means my goal should be 7. And that delves us into the challenge aspect. So really consider if you want to do goals, if you just want to do experiences. If you're someone who really enjoys challenges, then make sure you have more of them on your list. But I'm kind of a mixed bag kind of reader, so I have a few of each, and I'm really excited to see which ones I end up successfully completing. Number 3 is just to remember that even though these are goals for the entirety of the year, that doesn't mean they have to be goals that last the entirety of the year. Short-term goals are lovely. You can do quarterly challenges, maybe every 3 months, check in on yourself, or simply have a goal for the first half of the year and then reevaluate, revise goals, and then proceed with the latter half with a different mindset in your reading life. I think that oftentimes when we're talking about these reading goals for the year, we genuinely think that means it must be a 12-month process, but short-term goals are also wonderful. They're really satisfying, and they can kind of keep you going as you make your way towards kind of tackling those much larger goals that we all tend to have. So yeah, just remember that you can sprinkle in short-term goals that would just be really fun as well. The goals we set up for ourselves don't always have to be encased in some type of reading experience. As readers, as booktubers, book reviewers, bookstagrammers, whatever type of reader you are, our lives in the reading community aren't just us opening a book and reading it. So your goals can simply be a part of the bookish lifestyle, whether it be a goal surrounding your physical TBR, maybe how you acquire books. Do you want to open up a library account this year? Maybe that is a goal that you have, and that's very achievable, and I fully support it. Let's support our libraries. Maybe you want to try ebooks this year, or you want to try audiobooks. Those all count as reading goals, even though they aren't necessarily quantitative or related to reading itself. You also can make the goal of where you would buy your books. Do you want to buy local? Hopefully you do. And do you want to support, say, like bookshop.org or something to that effect? Maybe you want to do more buddy reads, get your friends involved, your family. All of these can count as reading goals, even though they really aren't necessarily directly related to the act of physically reading. So get creative. These are your goals. You enjoy them. Do whatever you want, really. Like, who's judging you? Not me. And finally, just remember that these are your goals. You're the reader in mind. So at the end of the day, if you're enjoying yourself, if you're satisfied, if you're having fun, if you feel that your own reading life has been amplified by these goals, then it's a success. You're doing a great job, because all of our lives are different. We've got different responsibilities. We've got different financial situations. Our environments affect the way we can consume books. I know that I personally am a huge fan of local bookstores. I try to support them wherever I can, but I'm also aware that not everyone has small business bookstores in their area, especially depending on which country you're from. You might have to resort to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, which is okay. You should not be gatekept in the reading community simply because your environment doesn't have the resources to support a local business. With that said, bookshop.org is lovely. It also has the wish list option, just like Amazon does. So I think that if you can, lean towards bookshop.org. But again, no one's here to judge you. We're not here to say that you're a bad reader simply because you're buying from X store or because you aren't reading X number of books per month. So try not to let certain, communities like Booktube or Instagram tell you that you're doing things wrong or that you need to spend an X number of dollars on books per month on all of these book hauls and everything like that, because it's just about you enjoying the literature that you're consuming. And yeah, so just keep it fun. These goals are not meant to be stressful, and if they are, then it's time to revise them. Well, I hope that these tips were helpful for you. Even if you do have your goals pretty much set, I think that keeping these tips in mind as you're trying to figure out the value of each goal you've made, it can be really helpful, because again, these goals are meant to set some type of value in your life, and if they're not, then they're probably not worth pursuing. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, you know that you should be liking it, that you should consider subscribing and ringing that bell so that you get more content like this. And yeah, comment, let's get in conversations and support each other as we move into 2023. All right, have a lovely reading month, everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.